We spoke about cloud resources being provided over the internet. That's what defines cloud computing. I'm going to send out the notes attached to this tonight, so you guys can have something to review. We spoke about advantages and why you things you can use to convince a company. We'll talk about when it comes to advantages over cloud. We said variable versus capital cost, which explains why instead of paying for hardware upfront, for example, buying servers, buying routers for a project, and then with cloud computing, you just dive in and provision only exactly the amount of what you need. There's no time of, buying excesses. We also spoke about economy of scale. We said because many people are sharing in the bill. For example, many companies are paying a little bit. Everybody is handling the cost. We said that's why cloud is cheaper. So a server is bought for $2,500. We shared among 10 companies. Everybody is paying $200, which is cheap to cover the cost. So that's economy of scale. Scalability. We said cloud has the ability to increase or decrease in a very fast manner. So you can scale up or you can scale down, which means you can have 2 servers running and you can increase it to 4 servers in a matter of seconds or minutes. And you can bring it back to 2 servers in a matter of minutes. That's what I mean by scalability up and down. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? And agility simply measures speed, how fast you can make changes. And so cloud compute provide that factor with speed. And with all that being said, gives your team more time to focus on business. For example, instead of spending time hiring engineers to work on the data center, does manual hardware stuff, patching, it liberates your team to focus more on business and less on stuff. Yes, what do you need?
I didn't say anything.
So I was explaining the advantage of focus on business. Is that clear with everyone? Hello? And then next is
Yes.
global and secure. So you can go global in a matter of seconds. And cloud is one of the most secure platforms you can ever think of. So those advantages are very important. In your certification exams, they'll need you to know these definitions, these 5. You need to be able to, they're going to say variable versus capital expense, and they'll define it in different ways and ask you to choose the best one. So you need to be able to know that. Deployment high model, how is cloud being provisioned? We say public cloud, which is what we are doing. AWS is public because everybody can purchase an account. Hybrid means you are both running on-prem so some applications are running in-prem and some applications are running in the cloud. So the company is not fully all in cloud. It is split between data center and cloud. That's what we refer to as hybrid. Private means everything is on data center. Does that make sense? So in your exam, you'll still be expected to know these definitions. So public, as we said, those cloud providers like AWS, Azure, Microsoft, Alibaba. Hybrid is anything that runs, companies that runs on-prem and in cloud, and private is all on-prem. And then cloud service models and responsibilities. As we said, the first column, which is all traditional on-premises, explains all what happens at the data center. You as the client has responsibility to take off everything from network to applications. However, if you're moving to cloud or you're renting any cloud provider, they take care of all the things that are on the light blue section, while you as a client, you're responsible for the dark blue. That's if you're paying for infrastructure as a service. So there are 3 forms of how you subscribe to cloud. Either you subscribe as infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service. Infrastructure, as we said, whenever you hear the word infrastructure, think about hardware. So when they said infrastructure, it means you are renting only the hardware, which is what they take care of, virtualization. What name of a hypervisor will you remember when we talk about virtualization? If we say, what's your virtualization experience, what will you mention?
The EXI.
UXI.
Correct, the EXI. That's good. So we're gonna learn which visualization platform does AWS use. They don't use EXI, they use Zen. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit. But when you're purchasing this plan, infrastructure as a service, you're responsible for your application because it's you who know what you want to use, correct? And then your data, it is you handle your data runtime. You determine which OS you want to use. You want to install Linux, CentOS, Red Hat 6, 7, or 8. Any of those is your choice when you do
Yes, sir.
infrastructure as a code.
Yes.
And then when you do platform as a service, the AWS handles runtime operating system. So you do not even bother to find out which operating system is running on this server. You just come with your application, your data, and build and run. They make provision of everything for you at the back end. It does not, you don't bother about that. You don't bother about patching, you don't bother with nothing. You just bring application. That's platform as a service. When we talk about software as a service, it means they handle everything for you. Even you don't do, there's no job involved, but this is expensive. So as you can see, the more you depend on the cloud provider, the more expensive it gets. So there are people who handle software as a service, there are people who rent platform and infrastructure. So you need to be able to differentiate. Sometimes they are abbreviated as IaaS. IaaS. I stands for infrastructure as a service. Sometimes they'll abbreviated as PaaS, platform as a service, or SaaS, software as a service. So don't get confused when you see some of those abbreviations. They're just short forms for what we're talking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good. And then we also say, let's take a look at those cloud providers. So we should know their names and even their logos. Sometimes you can go to an interview and it becomes conversational. They just want to talk to you about other names and find out, what you know. So you should be able to flow. There's Amazon, there's Azure, there's Microsoft, there's Oracle, Salesforce, Alibaba, and IBM. This is also their market trend. They may ask you, why do you prefer to specialize in AWS? Because of the market. It has the biggest market. So it's greater chances for you to find employment opportunity. Does that make sense? Then this slide gives us some similarities or differences between the three cloud providers, how they call services. This is going to make sense more when we have gone a little bit deeper. Then we discuss about regions, geographic locations around the globe. We said there are 32 regions, and this is essential in the exams. They'll always ask for this number. And we also, if you have any question, please do not hesitate to call me and ask your question, okay? And we said availability zones are within every region. So we said the summary term to describe a region is geographic location. So whenever you see definitions and they're talking about a geographic location, because they'll give you definitions between availability zones and regions. So try to ask you to differentiate those two. So for availability zones, you should be looking for data center. That's the word that will describe them. While for regions, you should be looking at geographic locations. Does that make sense? So this diagram will clearly explain, blue section represents a region, and you have availability zones, 3 availability zones in one region, and you have 3 data centers in some, 2 data centers in other availability zones. The reason we have that is for what we call redundancy, which means that in case there's a disaster, let's say there's flood, like in North Carolina, and this data center is down, and we have customers that we have built their resources in this data center. AWS will simply just switch everybody into this other data center. So that's why we have this connectivity. If you see the blue line, that's an internet connection. Does that make sense? Remember we said AWS has a private back-end network that does not depend on this Comcast, AT&T, what have you else? What are you guys using?
Verizon.
Verizon. So, and that's the beauty with them, because even these companies are out of network, AWS will still function because they are running on a private network on the back end. Does that make sense? And this private network connects all their data centers. So as we are saying, we have data center 1 year, 2, and 3. This is one of the beauty AWS tells its customers, that we guarantee availability of service 24/7, which means whenever you want to log into your account, that account that you guys have created, Eunice, they're telling you that there will be no day that you want to log in and they'll say, oh, network is down. You can't log in, our service are down. Because they're saying, if your account, because now we don't even know, maybe Eunice, your account was created over here. Mine was created over here. And Christelle was created over here. Now, let's say you want to log in, or if this data center is down, AWS is telling you that we can guarantee you that any day you want to log in, you will be logging to this account, because everything over here will move automatically. That way, you, the client who is logging, will not even feel that you have no idea that this data center is down, because by automatic settings, everything transfers to the next available data center. So you have 24/7 service available at all time. That's what addresses availability. Does that make sense? So when you hear the word availability, when it talks to cloud computing, is the assurance that cloud providers give their clients that services will always be available. And that is because of this setting. They have data centers all around, which are all linked up, such that in case there's fire, like in California, and this data center is down, these two are going to be up running. So service is never lost. Does that make sense? Any question up to this point? All right, no questions. So we're going to move into how to log into our AWS console, on accessing services. In fact, that first step is everybody should be, Eunice, after you created yours, did you attempt to log in?
Yeah, I logged in, but I didn't really do anything else. I logged
Was that your
in.
first time?
Yeah, it's my I think it's my first time. Yeah, it's my first time.
All right, good.
So I
So
didn't do,
okay, we're gonna log in tonight and then play around so you get used
yeah.
to the console. So I'm reading this last sentence here on my PowerPoint. Can you guys see that? Can you guys see my PowerPoint? The last sentence here that says accessing your AWS console.
Yes.
Okay, the AWS Management Console is a web application for managing AWS cloud services. And the console provides user interface for performing many tasks. Each service has its own console. Console also provides a billing option. So we're gonna see all of that. Now, so remember, just like when we built VMware, for us to log into VMware and start building servers, we had to use the HTTPS IP address to log in, correct? Now, they have built that environment for us, and they are giving us just the access. This is now login using your email and the password you created, and then you can start building just like VMware. Does that make sense? Good. So let me share this page and then we'll move on from there. So when you come to your AWS console, it looks like this. So I've not signed in yet. So it will always ask you for a root user and root user email address, which is the email that you use in creating that account. Can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Pale, are you with us? Hello? Hi. So it will always ask you root user and email. So that's what you use for the first time. Oh, avoid using IAM user. We'll get there tonight. But as first timer, root user is what you use. And root user is the overall super user. This is the user that you use in creating this account. This is equivalent to root user on the server. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
However, you cannot give this access to anyone. And even if you go to your job, you may not have root user access because this user can handle billing, which means it can pay the bills. This is the only user that can close this account, shut it down. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you always log in as a root user for the first time, and we're going to learn best practices. Why after logging in as the root user, you should now switch to a regular user and put this root user, make it inactive for best practices, so as to avoid anyone to be able to have access to it. So to begin with, let's log in simply. As I said, enter your password. Let me clean this off. Okay, good. So that has logged me in. Can you see, is this how your own appeared when you log in, Eunice?
Mm-hmm.
All right, good. So from my left end, you see it says AWS console home. We're gonna start from there so that you can see the home page, how it actually looks like, or you can click on services. I don't know why this S3 bucket, this page you tried was not found. I don't know why that was showing. Actually. So when you click on view all services over here, can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Prof.
Okay, good. These are all the hundred of services available in AWS that they are providing for us. Now, we cannot learn all of these wonderful skills, and we're going to concentrate only on things pertaining to system admins, cloud engineering, because it is on this same console that all your team members will be logging. Remember, your team is made up of about 14 professionals that comprises of, who can give us that
Software
number?
analyst,
Perfect. Software analyst, database, system admin,
database,
cyber security analyst. Everybody
Scrum
logs in
Master, Project
on,
Manager.
perfect. Everybody log in on this console. And so they have their own services that pertains to their job description or their duties. So not everything here pertains to you as a system engineer. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prof.
So we're going to be tackling one after another, most of these services. For now, we are just looking through the console, which is like the login screen when you log into your VMware. Any question up to this point? So from top left, we go to top right. First thing, you see my name, which gives you the name, the owner of this account. At work, you're not going to see individual names because at work, you're going to be seeing, I wish I could change this to dynamic tech. So it reflects a company name, because at work, you're going to be seeing your company name over here. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prof.
So if you click on that, very importantly, account ID. So this account that you're using, it has an ID. Is this the equivalent of your user ID in Linux? We all know that. What's the definition for user ID? Characteristics. One. Who remembers? Say something. What comes to your mind when you hear your user ID?
Unique.
Perfect. Unique. That's the
Okay.
only thing. That's the only characteristic that describe it. It does not replicate. No two accounts have this number. Does that make sense?
Like a MAC address, Prof.
Correct. Which is still defined as unique. Correct.
Yes.
So we are saying this number is unique for you alone. You alone who is logging here as Oben or as Dynamic Tech. So when you click on this name, this is what provides you. First thing is this unique number, which describes the account, because if you have any issue and you want to go reach to help desk or to support, which is AWS support, the first thing that will ask you is this number. And at least you should know where to go get it. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prof.
Man, I can tell you people that we have met at work. As I said, there are some people who study from YouTube. There are people who don't know where this number is located. So don't take it for granted, especially when you're talking about the first question they'll ask you in an interview is tell us about your AWS experience. Tell us what you can do. And your first explanation is to explain how comfortable you are navigating this console. The console is this first front page, which means you can tell them where to go get your account number. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prof.
Now, if you click on account, first step, it opens up and shows you details about your account. This is with regards to payments. So your bills and every payment, credit card, purchase, cost, usage. So when you start using services, this is where you come check how much each service is costing. How much is that how much are you spending? How can you make adjustments? We can set limit and say, for this account, it should never go above $10. If I'm using a service and it's going above $10, please send me a notification. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prof.
So to access billing, which is what we see here, we click on account. If you have to do anything with billing, payments, changing your credit card, that's where you go to. Organization, next one. Are we clear up to this point?
Yes, Prof.
Now, when it comes to organization, this is, as it says, central management for multiple AWS accounts. So your company can have, as we usually said, there's a dev environment, there's a test, and there's a production. The same thing will happen in your company. They'll have AWS account for dev servers, AWS account for tests, and for prod. Now, rather than you be able to log into 3 different accounts, they'll like to manage that as an organization. So create a centralized management for multiple accounts. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prof.
Now, this brings us to the point that, so they'll like to say, let's
Prof,
come.
excuse me. When you
Yes,
say multiple account, you're talking about the production, the testing, and the dev, right?
perfect. So this is
Okay.
where when we have those three, we come now and create an organization so that we can match those three. So when you log in, you can switch to any of those three rather than you log out from here and then go log in on the other one. Does that make sense? So when you
Yes, Prof.
whenever you hear the word AWS organization, it simply means bringing multiple accounts into one
Together.
umbrella. Perfect.
Okay.
Now they're gonna ask you in an interview, what's your experience with AWS organization? By the time we're done, you're gonna say, I'm very comfortable setting up an organization, which means bringing multiple accounts under one umbrella so as to ease logging. Simple, correct?
Correct.
Perfect. So we are just touching the surface of some of these services and especially when it comes to the console, because we are still at the level of the console. So my objective here is for you to be comfortable when you log in first time and you see this console, you should be able to explain anything that you click on. ID, accounts will take me to billing, organization, set up multiple accounts. Service quarter is the third one. Does that make sense? So
Yes, sir.
we click on service quarters. For you to be able to do that, you must complete organization. So you must have set up an organization first before you can do this service. So without that, it's not need for you to be able to do that. And so we go to billing dashboard. Billing dashboard takes you exactly the same where accounts will take you. Now, this is where you can create dashboards that, when you come here, when we start consuming resources, we'll be seeing dashboards here that shows our billing. For example, you'll see a dashboard that tells you that for the last 3 months, these are the resources you have consumed, and this is the cost. Because this is a fresh new account, we don't see any diagrams here now. But in a month's time, we'll start seeing dashboard because the system automatically gives us a summary of what we are consuming. Does that make sense? And then we move to security credentials, which is another important part. Very important. In fact, that's my priority when it comes to that page. Complete sign up, complete AWS registration. Okay, let me complete this. What is missing here? Okay. Sign up for AWS selected plan. We always go with the basic. So everybody should choose the basic. Yeah, most companies, you're going to be using business. Where's enterprise? My company uses enterprise. Yeah. And you see how many people that these companies are spending. Enterprise is 15,000 a month. I never knew. That's what my company is using.
Mm.
So we always choose basic and then click complete sign up. So that was what that was asking me. Let me finish my sign up. So now that that is done, if we go back to quarters. So let's complete this also. Okay. It may take 24 hours. Okay, it may take 24 hours for this to be activated. All right. Let's go to important security credentials. Very, very important. So this is, you come here maybe almost every day. So we must know where security credentials are located at the level of the console. Now, as a system admin, looking at this board, you see user groups and you see users, you see roles. At least this can tell you user group is the same as user groups in Linux, users the same as users in Linux. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So as we said, every service, there's always a sub console that opens. So because we are looking at security credentials, it opens under identity and access management. And these are the various subtopics on the left. So this is where we go to create users. Now, as I said, at work, it's going to be, although you see open here, it's going to be a company name. So let's say new hires have come in. You have been hired, Christelle and Eunice and Pierre, 3 of you. And today is your day 1 at work. And they say, I should give you guys access, just like in Linux, create a user. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
This is where I come and create you guys your user account because you guys will be logging into this same account. So for me to get that, I go to security credential. Very important. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to create our first user tonight when we are done looking through all these console surfaces, and then we'll come back here and create a user. So, and then we'll talk about other important things at this level of security credentials. For now, I want to limit it to groups and users. We'll talk about roles when we discuss in depth this topic, policies, identity providers, and account settings. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Then
you also see here what it says, MFA. So we're going to discuss all of that when we get to account setting. Let's talk account setting, actually. So when you click to security credentials, that's where it will take you to where you can create users, create groups, and account settings. For now, that's where we are ending. We're going to go a little deeper subsequently. This account uses the following default policies, password policies. Password minimum length, 8 characters. Does that sound like something familiar to us?
Yeah.
Good. Includes a minimum of 3 of the following mixed character types: uppercase, lowercase, numbers, non-alphabetic. Does that make sense? Never expires password. Must not be identical to your AWS account name or email address. Now, this is the default password policy that exists in this account. So it says password policy. This is the beauty about what can you explain about password policy as a system admin? What comes to your mind?
It's the same thing, making sure that you have a secure password, and then we set the limits in the configuration file.
Okay.
The
So as a Linux system admin, what should be best practices when it comes to password policy? Yeah, go ahead,
that it should have
Unix. Yes, go ahead.
that it should have uppercase, lowercase numbers, and then also we're setting the limits of like how when to change the password.
Perfect. So you see, this is the beauty when it comes to teaching system admins cloud computing. Imagine if we started with cloud computing. You know, those fellows who jump into IT and they just jump into cloud computing. You know, I'll need to start explaining what is password policy. What are the implications of setting a strong password policy? And which means whatever policy we set here, it affects anybody who wants to log into this account. Does that make sense? Because this is the master account. Remember, we are logging as root, correct?
Correct.
So to change the policies, to set up a strong, we click on edit. Can you see edit over here?
Yeah.
Can you guys? So we're not gonna do that now. Remember, we are just going through so that you guys can see users group, users, and account settings. So this is where you come if you have to set up a strong password policy for an account. We're gonna do that maybe tonight when we come back to create users. Does that make sense? And then remember we said we're gonna click on the next one. So we are done with this. We've seen security. We can also go to settings. Settings is just with regards to this specific account where you can change your default location and other management platforms. Usually you don't have access to this because, as I said, when you get to work, you're not going to be having access to this master account. You'll be having access to your own account pertaining to your name, which is what we're going to create tonight. Like if I'm giving you access to this master account, make sense?
Hmm.
So the next option is this, where you see Ohio. Now, remember we said one of the beauties of cloud computing is the ability to go global in seconds. Does that make sense? So if you click on these, it says that I'm logging to Ohio. So it means this account, my account today, whatever I'm creating or doing here, will be created in data centers that are in Ohio.
I was gonna say that, like the last time you explained.
Good. So you see, because it tells me Ohio. If I want to say, no, I want to create resources in Virginia, then I should be able to switch here. Can you see US East North Virginia?
Mm-hmm.
So when I click that now, I'm in US East North Virginia. Anything I'm doing, any of the services, is going to be created in data centers here in US East North Virginia. Now, it is always advisable to use locations that are closest to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Yes,
if
sir.
So if you're in Maryland and we have seen just two regions here, Ohio and Virginia, which one will you be logging into? Or will you
Virginia.
always,
Virginia.
perfect. So you always make sure that your account is showing Virginia. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't tell you how many troubleshooting I've done just because I did not check which region I'm logging into. For example, a client can call and ask you to create a server for them in Ohio yesterday. And you switch to Ohio, you build that instance for them or that server, and you save and you quit and go. Now, tomorrow when you come into work and you want to log in, the system logs you in North Virginia. You can't come to North Virginia and you're looking for service that you created in Ohio. You're not going to see it here. So for you to see that, you must
Right.
come back here and switch, and then you will now see the servers that you created yesterday in Ohio. So sometimes stress, tension at work, you just log in and you, how come I did server O2 yesterday? Why am I not seeing server O2 here? And you beat your head until you realize that server O2 was created in Virginia. When you make that switch, then you'll be able to see server O2. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the only button that gives AWS the power for when we say it can go global in seconds. You see all these data centers here? If I click on Mumbai, that's India. I'm right now logging to my India data center. If I build servers here and do anything, these servers are all built in India. I can confidently say I have a company running in India, or I have servers that are located in India. So what usually happens, as we said in class, AWS can go global in seconds. We can have a company running in North Virginia, and we realize that we have a lot of customers that are coming from India. We said, let's just duplicate everything we have here over in India, so they will have closer access because it's going to be coming from data centers that is closer to them. Does that make sense? We all know that closer to resources, proximity is an important factor. All right.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we say if you're in Maryland, you should be using North Virginia. Somebody who is in Ohio should be using Ohio regions. Does that make sense? However, you should always have in mind that if you're looking for a resource that was created in those regions, you must switch back to that region for you to see them. Does that make sense? Now, you may be asked in an interview, what scenario, why should you create resources closer to your customers? Well, it is simple because if we have a company running in the US, for example, US is not Virginia, and we have someone in India who is trying to download an image or a picture, we'll agree that it's not going to be as fast as someone who is trying to download from Maryland here. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. True.
So that's why companies will decide to recreate their websites or their services closer to their customers so that downloads can be faster or access can be quicker. So this is just to introduce us to how to switch global in minutes or in seconds, or how long does it take us? Just see how by just clicking, I've left India back to Virginia. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that's all what this guy is responsible, switching. And then we're going to see some services are global, which means if you're dealing with that service, you don't need to, you're not in any region. You're just in the whole world, which means that if they say there's a unique ID, know that you should never use an ID that somebody has used because it is for the whole, it's not per region. Are we up to this point? Now, I can't tell you, I can't overstress how much important, or well, this will not come to an interview, but when you start working, as I said, what happened to me, created instances in North Virginia and I was looking for them in Ohio by just switching. It's going to solve you a lot of headaches. Next is you have the question mark. If you bring your cursor there, what comes up?
Support.
Support. In case of any issue, how do you open a support ticket, help desk, so that AWS experts can come in and help you? Now, that will depend on the plan that you choose. Remember, we choose the basic plan, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I wish we would have read through all those plans so that you guys can see the difference. I think we can Google that. Just let me bring that up. Very important. So AWS support plans. Let me see what that will give us. That way, because in an exam they're gonna ask you the different plans and what are the prices, what are the advantages. So let's take a look at that support plans. We're just taking a shallow look. We're gonna deep dive when the time comes. So you have basic and developer, business, enterprise, on-ramp, and enterprise. So this before it used to be just 3. They've added 2 other plans. So it's basic is usually free. That's what we are using for this our account. So you have developer and business and enterprise, on-ramp, and enterprise. So if you read through this, you'll see the different categories and their costs. Changing plan. Let's go through a little bit. But to begin with, you must know these 4 names or 5 for these different plans: basic, developer, business, and business ramp. So very important. Let me put this in the chat. Any question up to this point?
Mm-hmm. Oh, are you showing that screen? Because the only screen I'm seeing is the unified settings.
Yes, I'm showing a screen. Means let me reshare. Okay, let me share my desktop so you guys can see whenever I switch. So
Okay.
yeah, this is what I'm. So I just typed AWS support plan. Let me go back and show you guys how I got to this page. So over here, the browser, I just type AWS support plans, and then this open, and then I click this at the bottom, AWS support plan. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
I go, and then these are the 5 basics. These are the 5 plans. I mean, basic is always a free one. Developer, less expensive. The most expensive is this one, enterprise, which is 15,000 a month. And then you have, we're gonna discuss more details about these plans. All what I need you to know is the fact that in order for you to get support, which means if you run into any difficulty and you have to open a ticket, what kind of plan should you select as per the nature of the support you're trying to ask for? Does that make sense?
Mm.
So based on your support plan, that's the kind of support you're going to receive. If you have basic, as it says free, there are some things AWS will not respond because we are using the free plan. However, they may ask you an exam, which one is the most expensive, which is enterprise. And with this, AWS responds to all your needs in less than 15 minutes. So companies that have very heavy production needs that they don't want anything downtime, this is what they select so that they don't make their customers waiting in the name of services down. That way AWS can come with rapid speed and resolve this issue. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Good. So when it comes to support, when you click on this, can you guys see my console now? I've switched.
Yeah.
So when you click on this question sign here, that says support, it now tells you support center, expert help, repost, documentations, training, in getting resource, starter resource center. Now, very important. If you want to read documentations, free trainings are here. I'm going to show you how to access all of these. The most important things here are support center. This is where you go to open a ticket to ask for expert support. And if you want to read extra documentations, if you want free trainings, you come over here and get free trainings. So support center, which is very important, as I said, there are times at work, they'll just, you guys are doing something and they say, hey, Eunice, please, can you log into that account and open up a ticket? Open up a support ticket so AWS can come in. At least with that, you should know where to go. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy. When you click on support and this is it, it asks you, is it account billing or technical? It is usually technical because billing has nothing to do with us. It's human resources that deals with billing, right? So it's always technical. Select technical. Now they have subtopics to help guide you. Which service do you want to use? Is it Elastic? You have issues with which service? Going through these, you can respond to this question. They are very easy. If we select the first one, we're going to ask you start and stop service or what kind of issue, just so that they can have an idea of what you are trying to do. Select this. It now opens. For first timers, it's good to read all of this literature because it gives you a good idea of what you are. They even give you things that can help you to resolve the issue by yourself. Very important. So just scroll through this and look through, and from here you'll get an idea of how to open up a ticket or on how to resolve issues. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So remember, we are just touching the shallow surfaces so that you guys can get used to this. We're gonna start digging deep and explain more when we get to subsequent classes. So still at the level of the console, if we go to training, well, I'm gonna walk you guys through. If you want to read extra material, how to register for your certification, you can come over here, and they have free training there for us. Make use of that. So that's all what support does. Support center, documentation, and training. Those are the two important things you use over here. Support is what we use on a daily basis. Open up a ticket. Next is the indicator bell. Can you guys see the bell?
Yeah.
Welcome to the new AWS user notification experience. Create a notification configuration to start receiving notification about event status changes that you care about. Now it's notification for this account. So you can create notifications such that if any services is used, for example, remember I'm going to create users. So many users are going to be logging in here. Sometimes, 10, 15, your whole teammate, as we said, 14. You want to set up an alarm with notification. If anybody creates a server or do some major changes, it should send you a notification. It's just like a log. See, send event log. We all know what is a log, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So the same definitions apply here. You want to be able to have a recording of everything such that you can determine if a server gets deleted. Remember, we still hear all 4 admins, we all log in. You want to know who deleted that server. So if you go to the logs, you're able to see what happened. That's what all this little bell notification does. Now, Cloud Share. If you click on that, this feature just came up like 2 or 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. This is already inbuilt console, already inbuilt command line interface that is available for use for Linux in case, and this is why we tell you guys that AWS is still Linux. Don't skip the path and jump into IT in the middle studying AWS cloud. You're still gonna meet Linux in the middle. So just imagine, do I need to explain anything over here?
No, but maybe no.
Yeah, because you
Mm-mm.
guys can interpret everything. You know what is there, but people who do DevOps by jumping in the middle, they'll now need to do a crash Linux program to understand things like this because they're still gonna meet Linux in here. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah.
So we're gonna get deep into this when we discuss issues and how you can use command line to interact with all the services, especially when we discuss how to access this console. Now, accessing this console using this browser is just one way. Another way is through command line. So we're gonna be discussing all of that. For now, I needed you guys to be very comfortable when you log in first time and this console pops up in front of you. The objective is for you to be able to explain everything you see on this gray bar. From top right, your account name, should be able to discuss all of this. Location, this goes global anytime. Support center to open tickets, notification, and Cloud Shell for command line Linux. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The next thing is to click on View All Services. And this will show you everything AWS is providing for your use, made available. Remember, this account is 1 year free, correct?
Yeah.
All right, good. So let's take a 5 minutes break. And when we come back, we're going to create our first user and first group because that's the first thing we want to know how to give people access into this company account. Remember, this is the root. So if Eunice is a new employee, Christelle is a new employee, Pale is a new employee, what do I do to give them access to this global company account? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Good. Let's take a break, and when we return, 5 minutes, we'll proceed with that fact. I'm going to pause the class. Please, Christelle, remind me to unpause, okay? So as I said, we're going to create our first user so that we can see how that functions. I'm sharing my screen. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
All right. So the to create a user, we said you go to security credentials, but that's not the number one location because it will still open you up where it says security, identity, and compliance. So IAM stands for Identity Access Management. That is the service that holds the capability for creating user accounts. So from services, you can click on IAM, Identity Access Manager. Let's write that down. I will say use for creating users. Does that make sense? So we click on, it is abbreviated IAM. So let's have that also. So if I click on IAM, you can also go to security credentials, as I said, but I just wanted you guys to see the other location that it can take you through. So it says user groups and users. Now, when it comes to cloud computing, the only difference is that you create a group first before you create the user. Meanwhile, in Linux, we create user, then create group, or by default, the group will be created. Is that correct? So we click on user groups. So let's put this on steps for creating a user in AWS. So one will say create a group first, Let's create a group. So it says create a group right there. Can you guys see create a group? So you click on create a group. So you ask for a group name. Now, just like Linux, we have group names like admins. So it all depends. If this group, you're going to be using it for system admins or for database or anything of your choice. So we're going to call this admins. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, just like we all know groups, we go with permissions, read, write, access. So what do you want to give admins? Admins, as we all know, must always have read, write access because they are like super user. So in AWS, our read, write access are what they call policies. Over here, can you see policies? User roles and policies. Can you see that?
Yes.
So on this same page, if you scroll down, these are all the policies listed in here, orange. Can you see this number of policies right there? There are hundreds of them. You can search them. You see, it goes right up to that. We're just looking at page 1. We click on page 2, click on page 3, click on page 4. Can you see all of those? Until page 44. So it's we have 100 of policies here. Now, this simply tells you that for any permissions you want to give, just go look for that service and attach to that group. In that permission will be executed. So for example, let's look into the first policy that says administrator access. Can everybody see that?
Yes, bro.
So if you click on the plus sign, it's just for you to expatiate, open up the policy so that you can see what is written in it. One thing we're going to learn is how to interpret this script. You know, the first sentence always tells you about the date it was created. So this is not going to always change. It's going to be always be 2012. This date will be constant. Effect, what will this policy do? It says it's going to allow action. What does star represent?
Everything that follows.
Perfect. Resource. Resource stands for services. What does star represent here?
Everything included.
Perfect. So interpreting this policy or this script tells me that anybody who is using this policy has the capability. If we attach this policy or give this permission to anyone, they will have the ability to do any action on any service. Resource simply means service. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Let's look into another policy. The next one, power user access. It tells you, remember this date I told you is going to be the same, correct? Never changing. Effect simply says allow. You could, if it doesn't want to allow, the next thing is going to be deny. So it's either you're going to see allow or deny. Deny simply means refusal, correct? Resource. Star simply means everything. Effect allow. So one of the things we're going to be doing is looking to these policies and interpreting them so you can best know whatever permission you're giving to someone, what can they do with that permission. So read only also. So you can see some very long policies. Now, don't get frightened. It simply says these are the resources that you are permitting them to do. So you must specify these are resources that this permission carry. So what am I saying by doing this? Whenever we create a group, like we are creating a group admin, you must add a policy to a group. As we said, policies are permission. That way, any user that you add to this group is going to enjoy this policy privilege that you are giving them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we are saying, especially in this scenario, this group is for admins. Admins are system administrators just like you guys. And the access we want to give them is access that they can do everything because they are the sole controller of this account. And so this policy is what I would like to give administrator access. This is widely used at work. So you guys will be using this at work a lot, administrator access, because it gives full access just like the root account. Because if we look at this interpretation, it says allow all action on all resources. Is that true? That
Yes.
sounds like root user, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So we have attached one policy, and all what we need to do now is click create group at the bottom. Can you see that?
Yes.
So it's 3 steps to create a group. Give it a group name, add a policy, any policy of your choice, and you can add more than one policy. So we can add this, we can add this, depending on what privilege we want to give to that group. Remember, we have not created the user yet, correct? But remember, you have to be lean, which means that you have to be stingy. It is better for someone to come complain that they want to do something, they don't have access, and then you provision that for them, or you give them that access, rather than for you to over-provision them and they can do things that they are not supposed to do. It is okay for somebody to come back and say, I'm trying to use this resource, but it's showing me access denied. Okay, good. Why do you want to use that resource? Are you permitted? If they can answer all those questions, you now go in and attach a policy to them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, this is the beauty of cloud computing. It's all about clicking, clicking, clicking. There's no command line, no commands. So just 3 steps. Give it a group name, add a policy, and click create group. And it tells you admin user group created. You see, it's still loading. It tells you defining loading. And good. When it comes to IAM, creating users, this is one of the services which are global. Can you see global over here? Top right.
Yes.
So it tells you that whenever for every global service, you can log in from anywhere. It does not depend on regions. So just the fact that you're dealing with the user, everything over here is global. So we have a group created, but there's nothing we can do with a group. The most important thing is the user. But we had to create a group first because that user, we're going to add that user to a group. Those are best practices. Not like we could not add a policy to a user, but that's not a good practice. So we practice adding users to group rather because those groups already have their policies there, or their permissions. Now I'm talking about best practices because they're going to ask you these are some of the things you explain when you're creating a user. In our environment, we implement best practices like number 1, making sure that users, when they are created, they're added to groups that already have permissions, not giving permissions directly to users. Does that make sense? So our group is still loading. As soon as that is completed, you can refresh by clicking this round arrow here. Can you guys see these 2 arrows making a circle?
Yes, Prof.
Yeah, that's how you refresh this page. So you click on that. Okay, it tells you that your group has been created. Now we go to create a user. So we click on users. So the example we're giving here, we said, let's assume Eunice or Uriah, they are new employees and they have been asked to give them access to the company AWS account, which is called OBED. Let it be dynamic tech. This is a company account. And so first thing I did was create a group. Now I'm going to create that user account. So I click create a user. We'll give it a username. The same formula applies. What is the criteria for creating users in Linux? What's the formula for creating username?
First letter, first name, last name.
So your first letter is E.
All lowercase.
Eunice, what's the last letter of your first 4 of your last name?
STEW.
STEW. The name is Stu.
Stewart.
Oh, Stewart. All right, so you can add some numbers just for uniqueness, just like what we said. So STW01.
Mm.
Now it says provide user access to the AWS console. That's what we want, correct? Because Unit is going to be logged into the console. So we select that. Does that make sense? Let me uncheck it again so we can see.
Yeah.
So we select that. Now it says, are you providing console access to a person? Specify a user in Identity Center recommended. I want to create an IAM user. This is what we are doing, IAM user. So you select the second one. Auto-generated password or custom generated. Now, I'm going to take auto-generated because I'll choose the option so that Eunice is going to change this password to whatever she wants so that I have a first-time login for her privacy reasons. Because me as the admin, I don't need to have her password. Does that make sense? I can also do customize. That way I'll send her the password I'm generating. However, I'll still make sure that user must create a new password at next signing. Can you see this sentence? So those are still security measures which are very good to implement because it gives assurance about security. Everybody is secure. So you can choose auto-generated or custom. So let's take auto-generated. That way we can see how it functions. Show password, don't need to show, it's going to auto-generate. And then we click next. Now they're asking you, do you want to add user to group, copy permissions, attach policy directly? So as we said, you can use any of these three, but best practices entails that we always add users to groups. That's why we created a group first. We can copy, if we select the other one, we can copy permissions from existing resources if they are there. We can attach policy directly, the third one. Remember this area, right? So we can come here and attach those policies, like the one we attached to the group. If we search for administrator access, this is that policy here, correct? So if we open it up, we see the same thing. So, but this is bad practice. To attach a policy directly to a user is not good. It's bad practice. So we always implement good practice, which means attach users to groups. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prof.
So in this scenario, we select the group because they're asking you, add user to a group. Yes, we see our group here. Check it. That's the group we want to add that user to. And we say next. Now we are done. They're just showing us a review of everything we have checked. Our username is STO01. Console password type is going to be auto-generated. Require password reset, said yes. Permissions, I am user change password. Because we said yes, password change, this policy was automatically added to it. User change password. Can you see that?
Yes.
Our group is there, admin. And then tag. Tag is just, let's read it. Tags are key value pairs you can add to AWS resources to help identify, organize, or search for resources. Choose any tag you want to associate with the username. So tag is just like naming convention. So if you are looking through the logs, sometimes you're going to see tags, and tags is what will help you to identify what resource you're using. So it's okay if you want to add a tag, it always goes like name, and then you can say the value is system users. So you can just say username. But what I'm trying to insinuate here that tag is just for naming conventions. You can ignore it. It's not very important, but it will help you when you're looking through logs. For example, if I'm looking through logs and I look through a series tag, it tells me that username Eunice. It will tell me that this is the user that belongs to Eunice, because by just looking through a username, it does not really tell me this is Eunice, correct? But
Yeah.
this tag will help me know that this user belongs to user Eunice, which is her, or I can even put a full name, Louis Stewart. Is that correct? So tagging just helps you to identify the resource. It's nothing too great. You can ignore it, but it will not cause any harm. And then click create user. Very important. We have not created our user. These are the informations I'm going to send to Eunice. After I'm done, I can either email Eunice this, send her an email with these credentials. What does she need? She needs a URL. You remember when we built VMware? This is what we were using to log into the console, correct?
Yes, Prof.
So this is what Eunice is going to need also. She'll also need this username. And then these are passwords. So if you click show, remember we choose auto-generated. So this is what was automatically generated for her. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very importantly, whenever you create a user, this last page is very important. If you miss this last page, you'll never see any of these credentials again for security reasons. So it is always advisable for you to download it. Can you see the download here?
Yes, Prof.
So if you click download, this file is going to be downloaded over here. At the top, you guys can see download is complete, correct?
Yes.
So I can now go there and get the credentials and send to Eunice as an attachment. So when all this is done, I'll now go to my email, my work email. Let me get to my email. Did I open one email? Where are my emails? Just all right, let me use this one since what is available. Did somebody just log off? Oh, I'm on the wrong distance. Okay. Where am I? This thing is confusing. Are you guys following?
Yes.
So now, if we go to my downloads, let's take a look at that file, that spreadsheet that I downloaded, so that you can see the information and see what I'm going to be sending to Eunice to log in. So this is the downloads. Can you guys see this?
Yes. Yes.
So click on that spreadsheet so that we spread it. So open up so that you can see the differences of all what was copied. So these are the three things Eunice needs to log in: the URL she put on her browser, her username, and her password. This is the email I'm sending. This is the attachment I'm sending through email so that she can log in. So I close this and I send an email to Eunice. Very simple. Click on email and then let's assume this is our work email. So Eunice, what's your email again? Eunice, are you there? All right, Eunice is not there. So let me log into this new user that we created so that we can test the authenticity. So we have created user ESTEWO1 and it has a password right now. Now, for me to log in, it's just for me to open another browser. So if you click on this square here, it says copy. Can you see copy?
Yes, Prof.
So that URL has been copied. If you open another browser right there, and you paste that URL, and you hit enter, it now opens up to that account that you want to log into. What's the username?
So it's ESTEW01.
All right, let me go to our downloads. Remember, it's there, right?
Yes, Prof.
So we can pick it up from them. So ESTWO1. So let's log in as that user. ESTWO1. And then we'll get the password. Copy the password over here since it's auto-generated. And we'll paste the password over here. Can everybody see that?
Yes, perfect. I can see it.
Now, remember, we all know where to get this account number, correct? On the top right, where you have your account number, it's always going to be 12 digits. So if you click sign in, now good, we are logging into that account the first time. And remember, we choose the option that says you should change the password, correct?
Yes, perfect.
So you must enter the old password. That's what I'm pasting. And then the new password. Repeat it. Then you click change password. So with this, I've logged into Eunice account. If you look at the top right hand here, you see it's not more my name. You can now see Eunice, correct?
Yes, perfect.
And you can see the account number here and
Yes.
Eunice username. You can go to organization. All of these things that we have discussed, same thing we gave Eunice. Remember, because we gave her the permission or the policy that says administrator access. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you look through this, this is how you provision access. This is how you create a user in AWS. Any question? Now, Eunice can perform activities in this account depending on what policies we give her. So we can create another user with more restriction. Is Eunice there? Eunice, I was supposed to send you these credentials to log in from your end. But when I
Yeah,
call
I'm
you,
here.
you were not on seat. Good. So that's an example how you can create a user and then use the credentials to log in. Any questions? So you can create another user and set strict restrictions like read only. So these are users that cannot perform any activities. Remember, we created this because it's for system admins, correct? We added Unix to the system admin group. So Unix now can perform administrative tasks. Unix can create another user because she has full administrative access. So if we go IAM, now we are functioning as Unix. She can create a group. Create a group. Now the group she's trying to create is for read-only access users only. So we can call this group read-only. Does that make sense? What kind of policies do we attach? So if you look for, you see read-only access right here. You can also search here. So if you hit search and if you type the search and hit enter, it brings you read-only access. So we want to give this first access because we want these users to have only the ability to read and not to perform tasks like creating users in the console when they log in. Does that make sense? Are you guys following?
Yes, Prof, I'm here.
All right, good. So we click create group. So we are creating a second user, but we begin by creating the group first. So it's a read-only group. So we go now to users and we create this user. So we want to create this user, Christelle, or let's do Uriah. Uriah, are you able to log in after we create this user? Are you on your computer or you're on the phone?
Prof, can you hear me?
Yes. Are you on the computer or you're on the phone?
I'm set up already.
Yes, I can hear you. Let's just go ahead. So we're gonna call this user Uriah, and we're gonna give console access. And we say it's an IAM user. This time, let's try customize password since we did generate it that time. And we're gonna call this welcome. So the password is simple. I just did welcome 01. However, it's gonna be changed at first login. And then we click next. So we are doing best practices by always adding our users to group. So this is the group we're adding that user and not the admin group. Does that make sense? So based on the responsibility of a user you're creating, you always know which group to add them. This user want to create for Uriah needs read-only access. So we are putting them on a read-only group. Does that make sense? We'll click next. So yeah, you remember we say it's a tag. So you can add a tag. You always type the name. And then we said, this is Uriah's account. And then you see create user. So this user has been created. Uriah, are you available to log into this user?
Yes, Prof. I'm sorry, my microphone wasn't working, just came back.
I'm gonna give you the credentials. I'll drop you on the chat. So pick it up there and log in, paste it on the browser and log in.
Okay.
You can just click on that link. And the username is Uriah. And your password is welcome01. It's gonna ask you to change it as first login.
All right.
So let us know when you are logged in. Or you want to share your screen? Let's see what you're doing. Yes, please share your screen.
1 second.
Sure.
Okay, let me go back to the Zoom. Okay. Who's disable participant screen sharing? So I think you have to give me some access so I can be able to share.
Oh, okay. Let me enable it. Yeah, go ahead.
Prof, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. And you said the password was welcome 1, right?
Correct. Uppercase W. All right. Is everyone following?
So the old password was welcome 1.
Correct.
I'm in, Prof.
All right, good. So hit on next. So this is just an introductory screen. They're telling you, go through. It's good to read through that so you can understand the console. Okay.
Okay. Why is this? Okay. Let me take
All right.
this.
So you see that you are logging and you can switch. So if we ask you to switch to North Virginia,
So I gotta go to location and now
perfect.
I'm at Ohio right now.
So you go up one step to North Virginia. Perfect.
Okay.
So you have made that switch. And so now I want us to see the restriction that we set to read only to your account. That means that you have limited access. There are some responsibilities you cannot do because your access is read only. Is that true?
Yes, Prof.
Yeah.
So click on all services.
Let's see.
Yeah, you can click there also. Click on all services. Scroll down. Well, there's a page that makes it more easier for us.
Okay.
Exit that. So you see all service right down here.
Yes, right. View services.
Yeah, that is easier. View services. Now let's go back to IAM because that's the only service we have started using. So click on
I am.
Perfect. So that we can see the restrictive states that go to user groups. Let's see if you can create a user. Remember, Unis just gave you access, right?
Yes.
So click on create a group.
Let's see.
Top right.
User group. Let me take this from here. Create group.
Perfect. Give it a name. Give it any name. All right. Scroll down. Scroll down the more.
Yes.
Add a policy. Any policy of your choice.
So we can do read only.
Yep. Scroll down.
And then
Create.
let me drag this from here again. Great. It's not allowing me. It's giving me an error message.
All right, good. This to tell you that you cannot create resources because we give you read only on to this account. There's nothing you will do here that will work. Everything you touch, you'll get this error because the policy we give you says read only. Does that make sense?
Yes, bro.
So if you read the error tells you that this user is not authorized to perform. So whenever you see not authorized, means that you cannot do it except a policy, which is what we refer to as permission in Linux. So policy is the equivalent to permissions. For us to fix this, we need to go change, either add you a policy to your group or change your group. If we switch you to the admin group now, this error will disappear. Does that make sense?
Yes, bro.
So I'm trying to show you guys, and this is how you create restrictions in the console level. It's not everybody that you give them read access. That definition will come on the upper management. You don't make that definition. So when they send you a request, say, hey, it's a developer, give them only read or write or whatever, or access to this resource. That's the policy. You create a group, put that policy there and add them to the group as best practice. Does that make sense?
Yes, bro.
Now, let me go back at the back end and you just stay there. Let me share my screen. Go back at the back end and make modifications so that we can now see how that is going to change your scenario. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, bro.
So I'm logging as Eunice. Eunice has full access because she's a full admin. We gave her full access. And if we go back to users, now we see Uriah right here. And if we select Uriah, we see that Uriah belongs to, so we'll go to groups. This is the only group that Uriah belongs to. If we click add user to group, because we want to add Uriah to the admin group, that way he too will have the ability to create a group. Does that make sense?
Bro.
So we click add to group and we see the admin group. We select that and we click add. So that has been added. Now you share your screen. Let's see what will happen to that error message again.
So now go back and try to.
You don't need to go back. Just go again and click create.
It went through.
All right, good. So this has taught us two lessons. The number one is how to set restrictions on the console. And the only thing we use to set those restrictions are what we call policies. Policies are the equivalent of permissions. So if you want to rewrite, you just search for the policy that has that permission and you attach to that user. We have learned that we don't attach policies directly to users. We attach policies to group, and then we add users to those groups. Best practice. Does that make sense?
Yes, perfect.
Number two, what it has shown us is that whenever we make those changes, it will automatically be propagated. What does that mean by that? It means that immediately you make the change, those users should immediately have those functions. It's not going to delay for maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes or 1 hour, because they're going to ask you that in your exams. They're going to say, when a change is made on an AWS policy or resource using the policies, is the change going to be immediate or does it delay for some time? What's going to be your response?
It happens immediately.
Perfect. So those are the three things we have captured this evening. We can create users with restrictions using policies, and we add users to group that have those policies, and we can make changes. And whenever we make changes to those policies, the effect is immediate. It does not delay. Does that make sense? Any question? So that's very simple. That's what like, you guys to be able to, everyone should be very efficient in doing this before we make next class. The second thing we're gonna do, you can stop sharing. Let me take it over from here. Is modifying password policy, because whatever restriction we set on the password policy here, that is what goes for the whole console. Does that make sense? So let me perform that role using Eunice, because Eunice has full admin account. So for us to change the password policy, remember we said we go to account setting or security credentials. Can you see that? So next week, we're going to be dealing more with other security credentials. I don't want a lot to accumulate in your head. So it says account settings right there. Oh, where did I click? Oh my goodness. I'm searching for my name here. Account settings. Perfect. Password policy. Now, these are number one, or the one task that they want to test, please can you go into the account and strengthen the password policy? You go to edit. So remember, I'm on account settings, and then edit, AIMM default or custom. You can do custom password, which is what we are very familiar with, because this is what will affect the whole console. So if I implement this, any user that we create is going to follow this rule. So password minimum length. What was best practice we discussed in Linux? Password minimum length. Who can give me their choice number? What do you think we should have here?
6.
6, Eunice?
I think 12, probably 12 to 15. Was it 12?
Yeah, a lot of modern days applications are doing 12 now. People have even stopped using 8. So the more complex it is, the better. Required at least one uppercase letter from the Latin alphabet, A to Z. Is that something we should implement?
Yes.
Perfect. Require at least one lowercase. What about that?
Yeah.
Nice. Require at least one number. So based on our experience with Linux, require at least one non-alphabetic. You should select all of these, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Requirement, turn on password expiration. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Perfect. Remember, we're trying to set password restrictions because we had this in Linux. What was the notification you get? How many days will you be notified before your password expires? You guys have forgotten.
I think we used to 7 days. Yeah, yes, 7 days.
All right, password expiration require administrators reset. We usually don't do that. Allow users to change their own password, correct? Prevent password reuse. Who can explain this last one?
It's like the same password that it just had, it cannot reuse it.
Perfect. So these are very strong. And then they say, remember how many passwords. So how many password backward can you use or can you not use?
Two, three. I'm just guessing.
You're correct. It is usually 5 or 8. The greater the number, the more secure your environment. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So when we save these, is Christelle, are you there? So when we save this now, any user that we're gonna create must implement this password. If not, the system is not gonna accept it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this is very important. I'm trying to make sure you guys grab the concepts. That's why we are taking it slowly. And after this introduction, next class, we're gonna start hitting resources. In fact, next week we are building our first server because we need to, it's gonna be hands-on, more practicals and getting into things done. So that's it when it comes to setting up password policy. And one other thing we need to be able to do is multi-factor authentication. We will do that next week. So I don't get you guys into a lot of stuff. That's second form of authentication before you log into the server. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So any question up to this point? So for a recap, we have seen an introduction to the AWS console, all the various activities we can carry at this level of the console. When we go to accounts, billing, security credentials, also how we can switch to global use. We also saw support where we can open tickets from support center. I've had an AWS question where they asked, how do you reach out to AWS in case of any difficulty? How do you ask for assistance or help? So you must be able to talk about support center is the name they want to hear. Support center. So write that down, please. Support center. So next week, we're going to go a little bit deeper. And in fact, we're going to be on thunder speed. I'm trying to make sure you guys catch up, getting used to the environment. This week we have logging. So next week we should come very prepared. Uriah, have you done your NFS?
Bro, I was about to ask you, for some reason, I created my account. I don't know if I can share with you, but when I'm logging, there's a place where I'm stuck where they're saying you should press F11. And I'm using a Windows 11, but I keep pressing F11, it's not going. So I thought maybe it was my computer, my the software I was doing that. So I deleted it and I re-downloaded it and I installed it back, but it's still doing the same thing. I'm still stuck at that point.
Which application is that?
Let me show you.
Is it VMware? Let me stop this recording.